In the heart of Kaduna State lies Zangon Kataf, a land scarred by one of Nigeria's most haunting communal conflicts. For decades, the name has been whispered with fear and sorrow, a reminder of how ethnic and religious tensions can erupt into unthinkable violence. This is the story of what really happened in Zangon Kataf, the bloody secret Kaduna wishes could be forgotten. To understand the conflict, we must first understand the people. Zangon Kataf is home to the Atyap people, also known as the Kataf, an ethnic group with deep cultural roots and ancestral claims to the land. But within the same space live the Hausa settlers, who over time established their own identity in the area. For years, these two groups lived side by side, but beneath the surface was a long history of resentment over land, trade, markets, and political control. The flashpoint came in 1992, when a local decision was made to relocate and restructure the central market. To the Atyap, this was an opportunity to reclaim what they believed had long been denied them, a fair share of control over commerce in their homeland. But to the Hausa community, the decision looked like a deliberate attempt to sideline them and seize their economic power. What could have been settled through dialogue instead ignited suspicion, anger, and eventually, bloodshed. On the 15th of May 1992, violence broke out. What began as a market dispute spiraled into full-scale clashes. Homes were burned, families scattered, and once busy streets turned into battlegrounds. Within hours, the conflict spread like wildfire across Zangon Kataf and into surrounding areas. The Nigerian government's response was swift but brutal. Soldiers were deployed and curfews imposed. But rather than restoring peace, the presence of the military fueled more distrust. Accusations flew that the army was siding with one group against the other. What was meant to be protection often ended in more casualties. The human cost was staggering. Official figures estimated hundreds of deaths, but eyewitnesses and human rights groups suggest the toll was in the thousands. Mass graves were dug hurriedly. Villages were reduced to ashes. Survivors still recall the smell of smoke, the cries of children, and the silence of fields littered with corpses. One of the darkest legacies of the Zangon Kataf crisis was the trial and execution of Atyap leaders. Prominent community figures, including Major General Zamani Lekwat, were accused of instigating the violence. Courts sentenced them to death, sparking outrage across the Middle Belt. Many argued that the trials were politically motivated, targeting the Atyap leadership while ignoring Hausa perpetrators. Under international pressure, the executions were later commuted, but the stigma and injustice lingered. Beyond ethnicity, religion sharpened the divide. The Hausa were largely Muslim, while the Atyap were predominantly Christian. This added another dangerous layer, fueling the narrative of a holy war. But at its core, the Zangon Kataf conflict was less about religion and more about land, power, and survival. The aftermath left Kaduna fractured. Thousands of people were displaced, resettled in camps where hunger and trauma defined daily life. Neighbor turned against neighbor. Friendships that once crossed ethnic lines dissolved overnight. Trust was gone. Yet, in the ashes of tragedy, voices of reconciliation emerged. Civil society groups, churches, and community elders began pushing for dialogue. They insisted that peace could only come through truth and justice. Efforts at peace building slowly took root. Today, decades later, Zangon Kataf still bears scars, but it also holds lessons for Nigeria, that no society can thrive while ignoring deep-seated grievances. Kaduna's bloody secret is not just about what happened in 1992. It is about what happens when government fails to act impartially, when leaders exploit differences for power, and when ordinary people are left with no choice but to fight over the basics of existence. The story of Zangon Kataf is a warning. It reminds us that peace is fragile, and without justice, wounds never truly heal. For those who lost their lives, for the families still grieving, and for the survivors who carry memories of fire and blood,